So, hey, so first of all, for those of you who did go to seminar, I hope you had a great time. And here's, one of the best things about being engaged in a coaching group like this, being part of a group, going to seminars, immersing yourself. And on that note, for those of you who maybe didn't see the notice, we have set our date for our seminar, a spring seminar at Dr. Brian's office, March 21st, Saturday, March 21st. It will be on a Saturday this time. Love to have a great turnout from you guys, your teams, your staff. One of the most important things about being involved in a group like this, going to seminars, is immersing yourself with the energy. And like Kevin just said it, is you feed off of other people's certainty and other people's energy, and that in itself is worth everything. And we're actually going to touch on this today when we talk about state and getting yourself in state. I'm fortunate enough I get on so many coaching calls with people. And I was just on a coaching call yesterday with a client, and this client is completely drained. He's angry, he's bitter, he's fed up. And that's really when we got down to the bottom of it, when you boil everything down, he's alone on an island. He's not going to get together in groups. He's feeling like he's just doing everything by himself. And you can't build a practice that way, let alone build a life. You can't have great relationships. You can't raise your kids the way you want to raise them. You have to be around people that pour into you and fill your cup up. That is so vital, so important.
The importance of getting, like we talked about this, like at seminar, I'm in multiple different groups. But even in like the high volume mastermind piece, they talked about the importance of getting face to face. So in the higher volume group, like we do have a separate Zoom call every month. But we talked about the importance of getting face to face in seminar. We do a special lunch and we go through a lot of things. And that face to face, there's just something different versus a phone call versus Zoom. There's a different piece as far as connection. Being a human being, there's something that lands differently. And like I was talking to team, one of the biggest things I came back with, spent a lot of time with Shoemake this weekend, reconnecting on stuff, and a lunch conversation we were having. We were talking about another super, super high volume subluxation doc that we all knew back in the day in Max Living. And he's like, one of the biggest things in his office is there was no good news. There was no good news until there was actually correction. You were actually doing the right things. And these are the pieces we gotta make sure, and I think it'll tie into a lot of this, is that a lot of times it's not that it's like we don't want to celebrate advancement, but for a lot of times, like we get comfortable if someone gains 5 degrees in curve, but they still got a 50% loss, like there still isn't good news. They're still dying faster than they should. And so it's anchoring to these things. And for me, if I didn't fly all the way to Orlando to have that conversation, I wouldn't be in the spot I am with my team right now to be back here. So same thing, making sure you're getting to the group events, making sure you're getting the face to face. Every single time I've made the commitment, whether it's good for my schedule or not good for my schedule, it's always paid massive dividends.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen this morning because I've worked out this. We've been talking the last few weeks about conversion, and we've been really focusing on communication with patients and making sure that you're doing and asking the right things, not necessarily instructing or teaching. You're creating an environment, sharing your energy with people, and asking the right questions to help them to process what you're talking about and allow them the opportunity to change their mind about what it is you do and what you deliver, because they come in with these preconceived notions. And we all know that. It happens in every office, everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are, what city you're in. Every single person, and it's really important to own this, every single person thinks you are a therapist. They think you are a treater of symptoms. They're coming in to have their pain relieved. So let's just assume everybody's coming in with that mindset, and it's your job to set the stage, bring your energy, bring a different model into their life, and ask the right questions so that they can understand what it is you do and therefore want it. Even though that's not what they came for necessarily, they get introduced to it, and now they want it. It's something that they are lacking and missing in their life, and they want it. They want to be with you. They want to be with your team. They want you to lead them, and that's the whole thing. So what I've done this morning is I call this the 3S system for chiropractic success. It's actually the 4S system for chiropractic success, because success is the fourth S. And what we're going to do is we're going to break this down to try to really define what success is for you and what you want to see. So 3S system. So this is really the goal is how to build a thriving practice. And the key is not just a thriving practice, but create freedom and inspire lifetime care. And if that's what your goal is, and I want you to really picture this, think about what it is you want in practice. And if it's, picture your dream practice. And I did this all the time. I mean, this is something that we worked on all the time with our team. And Kim and I would talk about this. What does our ideal practice look like? And I really tried to divide it down in my mind that I love adjusting cervicals. And it would be great. I mean, my ideal practice, I would make one or maybe maximum two adjustments, cervical only, cervical spine, open concept office, great energy, great team, people coming in asymptomatic. So they're only coming in basically to maintain correction, maintain the reduction of subluxation and nervous system integrity. And they knew that from start to finish. They would bring their kids in, they bring their families in. That's what my dream practice looked like. And it would be 100% cash. People would be paying. Everybody would be on prepaid payment plans. And we really tried to break it down and identify that's exactly what we want. So that's the number one thing for you guys is determine what it is you want. And if you got to have a very clear vision on what it is you want, and when you can have that picture down to the littlest detail, then you can start to build it. And as you build it and grow it, then you can start to eliminate all the things that don't fit into that. So we got to the point where we were so busy, somebody came in and said, I want to pay as I go. No, sorry, we don't do that here. I'd be happy to refer you to a friend of mine around the corner or down across the town that would do that, that would treat you on the first visit. And I hate to use the word treatment. And this is something I want to talk about this for a second. You guys start watching your language. Watch the terms you use with patients, because that comes through. The meaning of those words changes the mindset of those patients. So for those of you who are still using the word treatment, and I talk to you guys individually about this, stop it. You are not a treater of symptoms. What is a treatment? It is an application to reduce a symptom. That's what it is. That's a treatment. You go to a massage therapist for a treatment. You go to a physiotherapist for a treatment. You do not provide treatment for anything. You adjust the spine, remove the interference. That's what we do. We do not treat disease. We do not treat symptoms. We do not treat inflammation. We do not treat pain. We do not treat anything. Stop using those words, because it sends a message to those people. And if you're worried why people don't want to stay for the rest of their life, because you're using terms like treatment. So stop doing that. So most chiropractors didn't get into this profession to run on a treadmill. You didn't get into this profession to get burned out. You're running around crazy. You're trying to do everything. You want to try to build a business. So, and this is the whole thing, is to think about your practice as a business. And a business is not something that you've created that is a job for you. So most of you have created a practice and it becomes a job because you're doing everything. And for you to get busier, you just have to put more time in. So stop thinking that way. We got to start thinking differently. So you got into this because you believe in health, healing, human potential. But here's what happens is that we all get handcuffed. So we get handcuffed to being there. Like our practice doesn't run if we're not there. And we talked about this forever, is that, for us to grow, it spent so much time. But I got to the point where we trained our team so well, and we had great associate relationships because we poured into them and we trained them. Our practice grew with me only working 16 hours a week. Like literally 16 patient hours a week. I was still adjusting, many, many people during those times because I didn't spend a lot of time with people because I knew the value of the adjustments, not the time involved in that relationship. But it freed up my time. I was off every evening, every afternoon with my kids, coaching hockey, being with the family, home for dinner. And we just built a life around that. So figure out what you want and start building around that and train your team to help support that. So you guys get handcuffed to symptom-based thinking. So we got to get our mindset out of the symptom-based thinking and stop everything that we're doing that treats symptoms, that addresses people's symptoms, because we have to put the strategy in place to get people to start thinking above, down, inside out. And again, we're going to get into this. We get handcuffed to cycles of stress, burnout, short-term care. I can't afford it. People not following through, quitting before their care plan's up, and the revolving door of team members. You know, you're constantly hiring the new team member and training the new team member. So success really is a life that feels abundant, right? You try to define, and like I said, littlest details, a life that feels abundant. Build a practice because you want to. You practice, you go to practice, you adjust people because you want to, not because you have to. So you start to gain the freedom of time, of finances. You can start to travel. You can have experiences with your family, and you're not handcuffed to your practice. So here's the three corners of building that success. So that's the first thing. The first S is success. Define what success looks for you, and start really identifying those little details.
Well, I'd love to know where people feel just even in just that realm of what it feels like right now in practice, like what Dr. Colin's describing. Like where are you at? Like I think like most important thing when we're looking for something different, unless you feel you've hit the cap of your practice and your fulfillment and whatever, there's like you need to understand like where am I at and acknowledge where this is to know where the growth is. So I'd love to understand just that, like what Dr. Colin described, like where do you guys feel that you're at? What areas would you like to improve? What things would you like to be easier? Because that will help a lot of this piece.
So we're going to break this down, and we're going to start talking about, so it's one thing for us, you know, for Brian and I and our everybody who does any type of coaching or instructing. It's easy to talk about strategy. It's easy to say, here's a script. It's easy to say, okay, this is the way you train your team. This is these are the procedures you put into place. But strategy does not work unless you do the first two things, right? So the first thing is state. And we talk about state all the time as far as managing your energy, managing your mindset, managing your state. So once you start to manage your state, this is where things start to get transformative. This is where, you know, and we've heard this many, many times. You've heard of people like coming back from a seminar or coming back from camp or just changing themselves. And what happens is their practice doubles in a period of a month to 3 months. Like literally, and I'm gonna tell you, I can vouch for that because our practice went from 400 to 800 visits a week within 3 months after we made just a simple mindset change. And that was getting rid of all of our modalities and focusing on sharing what the subluxation and how devastating the subluxation was. And that's all it was. It was just an ownership of that. And here's the thing is not caring about the result. We just became totally independent of any type of result in our practice. And we just said, we're going to start telling the truth. I don't care what happens. I don't care if our numbers, our volume, our collections go down. We're going to start telling the truth. And we start telling the truth and boom, it was like a cyclone hit and the phone started ringing, people started coming in, referrals start happening. And next thing you know, we had to hire more team members, but within 3 months, literally we doubled our practice from 400 to 800. And, but that was all because of just a simple mindset change. So the thing is, when you start to change your state, the state is the foundation of everything. Your state determines how you show up, and how you show up determines everything that happens as a result of that. So really, what is your state? So let's think about this. And this is the best way I believe to describe it is your state is your emotional physiology. Your state is the energy that walks into the room before you do. It's an aura around you. It's an energy around you. People know who you are, what you stand for before you say a word. It's just a feeling. So it comes with certainty, and it's like an unspoken communication of passion. So this is something that I really want you guys to get. And this is why, you know, coming to seminars, being part of the group, showing up on calls, being engaged in this That's where that starts to get built, and that's where that starts to change. So you can have the best strategy in the world, but if your state is weak, if you feel stressed, if you feel rushed, or if you feel uncertain, you completely sabotage it and you wonder why things don't work. So the state in chiropractic shows up in everything. It shows up in your new patient consultations. It shows up in financial conversations when you're showing a care plan to a person and asking them for money or prepayment. It shows up in your team meetings. It shows up how you handle objections when people tell you that they need to stop care or their insurance has run out, so they need to stop care. It shows up when they tell you that their medical doctor said that chiropractic is dangerous. It shows up when they say their wife doesn't want them coming here anymore or their spouse doesn't want them coming here anymore. It's how you handle all these objections. It's how you lead your team when you're under stress. It's how you interact with your spouse, and it's how you show up with your kids. It's a state of emotional physiology, and it takes training to help get yourself to that place. So patients don't decide based on logic. They get triggered on emotion, and you stimulate their emotion by your emotional physiology, by your state. So they decide on your certainty. And this is why we always say, because I know some of you do one-on-one consultations, or some of you, do a day 3 that's a one-on-one report of findings. And that's fine. You might get conversions, but I guarantee you, you don't get transformation that way. Transformation comes when you are vulnerable enough to allow yourself to get up in front of a group, talk live, not from a video, but talk live to a group, share your passion, share your emotion, share your story with people. That's when you change their physiology. That's when they get emotional about you and who you are and start to buy into your energy. And when they buy into your energy, that's when they become lifetime patients. So I hope that makes sense. And I want you guys really to kind of think about that, especially for those of you who aren't doing group doctor's reports. And I'm not here to tell you you have to do group doctor's reports, but if you're not where you're wanting to be in practice, if you haven't created the practice of your dreams, if what I said at the beginning with that practice where people come in asymptomatically, they bring their kids, they come in for lifetime care, they're all on prepayment plans. If that resonates with you, that's something that you have to build. And that comes from your emotional energy. And that, I'm telling you, that practice that we built over the years came from us sharing our heart and our passion with people in a live setting. And I took every opportunity, not just doctor's reports in the office, but every opportunity to get up in front of people and speak and share my heart. And that's where it really grew.
And if I can jump in there for a sec, Colin, like it develops you as a leader is one of the biggest things. So if you want to change, and again, like I remember like when you talk about this and if you read about this, when someone has state, it's like that something's changed in the room, that someone's entered the room before you see them. When someone has state and they enter a room, it's this fourth dimension thing. And being up, and whether you're not prepared to start with a doc's report, maybe it's a workshop, but being able to get up and lead with passion, lead with principle. It's difficult to start, but it develops you as a leader, which brings a stronger person to every interaction you have inside and outside of your practice. Like I know last night we did our Younger Tomorrow makeover workshop last night, and some of the new patients were in that, and two separate ones came up with their spouses who had not started yet. And they're like, yeah, we're definitely coming in, but they wanted to come up and talk to me about, you know what, we didn't realize how big this was. We didn't realize like you're into this for the person as a whole, not just what it means to our spine and our current conditions right now. And it's just I don't think it's anything special. It's being up there and leading people through that. So whatever you're doing, doc support, workshops, you got to get doing something because it develops you first, which then makes everything else better.
That is absolutely true. 100% true. So here's the thing. So, and this is something to ask yourself, because, and you might not even realize this is coming through in your communication or your energy. But if you're uncertain, if you're unsure, if you feel desperate or needy, if you're feeling apologetic, if you're feeling burned out or exhausted, People feel that. They feel that instantly. And what happens is you're in the scarcity mindset. And many chiropractors practice from the scarcity mindset. Like, oh, I hope they say yes. I hope they sign on to the care plan. And then what happens is you start making deals. You compromise your schedule. You've told them they need to be here 3 times a week for 12 weeks. And they say, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Okay, well, how about 2 times a week? How about 1 time a week for 6 weeks? How about you pay as you go instead of signing on to the care plan? You start compromising this and you accept this cancer cell into your practice that just grows and it burns your team out. It burns you out. And you wonder why you're frustrated. That's exactly why. But it has to all come back to your certainty and your state. So we need to start changing that. For those of you who feel that you need to spend more time with people, or you're concerned, what if they quit? What if they leave? You have this level of desperation. You can't practice that way and be successful. And when I say successful, I don't mean just making money and putting money in your bank account. I mean really being fulfilled with what you're doing as a chiropractor. So this is stuff that really it digs down and boils down to the bottom, the heart of everything that we do. When you're practicing from abundance, this is where you can say, I truly own the principle of above down, inside out healing, and I serve because I am full. I have abundance and I just want to share it with everybody. Like when I really started to understand and own the principle of chiropractic, for me, it's a spiritual thing. For me, it's a God thing. And when I start to really own that, when I remember, in fact, I remember the transformation when it happened. I couldn't wait to tell everybody about it. I couldn't wait to get out there, and I frankly couldn't care less. I remember having friends ask me, did you become like some sort of a reverend, or did you become some sort of a Bible thumper? Like, I mean, I had all these comments, but I did not care. It was transforming for me, and it was transforming for people in my community. I truly owned it. And so it didn't come from a point of needing a patient. It came from a point of being able to just own this principle. I wanted to share it. I didn't care if they started care. I didn't care if they thought I was a kook. I didn't care at all. But what happened was just the opposite. It grew exponentially. And so I'm going to say, like, take the filters off of you. There's something inside of you that wants to break out, and you're holding yourself back. You're filtering what you say, whether it's fear of the board or fear of people rejecting you or fear of people going to call you some sort of name or whatever it is. Get rid of those filters because it changes your life, not just your practice, but it changes you, and you become the person that God wants you to be. Your posture changes, your tone and confidence, your authority, your leadership, everything changes. So the state creates this ability to be free. So you operate from a high state. You stop being the bottleneck. You can now empower your team, and you make decisions from your vision of what you want, not from fear. And a practice that requires your nervous system to be constantly stressed is totally, sorry guys, a practice that runs from this level of fear is a huge bottleneck, and it can't grow. So a regulated leader builds an inspired team, a leader that is focusing on being in state themselves builds an inspired team and inspired patient base. Okay. Any other comments on state? All right. So part 2, we want to get into the story. Okay. This is the second S. When you start to change your state, you then change your story. And what is your story? Well, your story is the meaning that you assign to yourself. So every one of you, whether you realize it or not, you have a story, and that story has put you in this place in your life right now. And so what is the story that you assign to yourself? It assigns you the level you're at as far as chiropractic, as far as your level to make money. It'll affect what you deliver in care plans. It assigns your leadership, its time, delegation. Your patients all have a story. And let's just say that every one of them comes in with the story that, like I said earlier, they think you're a treater of symptoms. They want to come in for a quick fix. They don't want to pay anything. They want help now. And So that's the symptom relief story. So they come in, hey, listen, I'll come in until it stops hurting. Once I'm feeling better, I'm done. Chiropractic is for pain relief. Somebody else is responsible for my payment, like my insurance company. When my insurance company doesn't pay anymore, I'm gone. They all have that story. So that and realize that story will never lead to lifetime care. So we have to get them to change their story. So to get them to change their story, we have to change their state first. We have to get them emotional. We have to give them logic and allow them the opportunity to make the decision to change their paradigm, and then they can change their story. So if you don't replace the story that they have, they will always default back to that story. And they will always think of a reason why they shouldn't be under care in your office. Okay, that is not the lifetime care story. So the lifetime care story, it becomes a role that you step into, and it's not a story of convincing. It's not a story of teaching. It's a story of inspiring. So your goal here is to reframe their reality. That's where it's different. So the new story sounds something like this: like your spine is not a pain organ. This is, when I lay my hands on your back, it's not because I am treating back pain. It's because I am changing the alignment of your spine. I'm removing subluxation and I'm allowing integrity. I'm allowing the nervous system to thrive. So symptoms, remember, are just signals. Back pain is a signal. Headaches are a signal. They're not the problem. You don't brush your teeth until the pain stops. Why would you care for your spine that way? Remember, you're not selling visits, you are selling transformation, and you're offering a philosophy of life. Okay? Any comments on that? So this is where I want you guys to ask yourself. So, because most of us live in this story, and I'm going to say a couple things here that might be the hard reality. That some of you are thinking, hey, if I grow too much, if I have too many people in my office, I lose quality of care. If I don't spend enough time with people, they're not going to like me because I feel like I need to justify my fee somehow. I need to do soft tissue care because that's a supportive thing and they're paying me $70 a visit, 75, 65, whatever dollars a visit, and I need to justify that few minutes that I'm spending with them, or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or however long you're spending with each person. If I step back from my practice, things are going to fall apart, right? Because you don't have enough trust. You haven't put enough leadership and training into your team to give yourself the confidence to be able to step back and let the team lead the practice, let the team captain the ship. And another thing that many of you are thinking about is that if I make too much money, I'm not being ethical. If I charge too much, I'm not being ethical and people can't afford my care. And these are stories that are keeping you trapped. So we got to get this mindset in our minds to serve out of abundance. The more abundant I am, the more lives I can serve. The more you collect, the more money you make, the more you can make a difference in people's lives. The more you can transform the profession. I mean, listen, I want to see this profession become the number one leading profession in the world, but I want people who have a lot of money, who can influence, who can help grow schools, who can help bring people into chiropractic. That's the people I want to hang around with. So, this is where we have to start thinking. You can be transformative in your family's life if you are the leader and you live a life of abundance. Any other comments? Doing okay?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say just not one piece. We all have these limiting thoughts in our head at some level, whether you identify them or not. Do pay attention to them. So the things, most of the times, it's the excuses that we give for why maybe we're struggling with a volume we want, a relationship we want, an income we want, um, balance we want, etc. That excuse is usually pointing you in the direction of some sort of limiting thought that you do need to address at some point if you're looking to move forward.
So, here's an interesting thought is that, remember your state controls your story. So your current situation in your life is your story. And so for you to change that, you need to change your state. And that's why, and here's a perfect example. When you go to camp, if you came to the Canadian camp that we had, or you go to camp in the States, what happens is you get broken down. You get broken down physically, you get broken down emotionally, and the purpose of that is to help you change your state, is to really help you break through those limiting beliefs so you can therefore change your story. So when you change your story and you can become a bigger leader and start sharing your mission and vision. Remember, your mission is why you exist. It's why God put you here. It's really what you're here for. And your vision is where you're going. What is your big vision for your practice, for your life? What do you want to accomplish? And here's the thing, when your team knows what that mission and vision is, why the practice exists, who you serve, and what future you're building, you build a warrior team. You build a team that can't wait to be involved in everything that you do, can't wait to do makeovers, can't wait to do dinners, can't wait to help you with the doctor's report, can't wait to see your practice lined up out the door. They stop working shifts and they start leading lives. And you see it. You've seen team members who are absolutely on fire for chiropractic. And that's only because they've been led by a leader with a big vision. So when patients feel that mission and that vision, they don't ask how many visits. They ask, how do I stay connected to this practice? How do I stay connected to chiropractic? How do I stay connected to this doctor for the rest of my life? And it'll happen, but it has to happen from you first. So now we're going to go into the part 3, which is the third S, which is strategy. And remember, strategy can't happen effectively without the first two things. Change your state, change your story, then create the strategy. And when we talk about strategy, I mean, and for those of you who are, newer in our group and some of the chiropractors who are really wanting to grow their practice, you're in a place right now where you know you're not seeing a lot of people. You know that there's more. You know that there's more that you can accomplish. There's more that you can do. There's more people you can serve. There's more collections that you can bring into the office and more abundance that you can create in your life. We have to create this strategy, but not until you change your state and your story. So state and story give you power. Strategy gives you the ability to scale. So what is the strategy? Well, that is your systems. We talk all the time about day 1, day 2, day 3, and all the things that go with it. Day 1 phone call, day 2 phone call, the new patient tour, the doctor's report, the care plans that you create. It gives you structure. And when you have structure, you remove the chaos. It gives you a better ability to communicate. Why should you learn your scripts? Because it gives you a better ability to communicate. It gives you a framework to get your message across consistently and get consistent results. It gives you an ability to train your team and bring your team up to a higher level. And it gives you the ability to become a better leader because you have a vision, you have a plan to make that vision happen with the structure, with the strategy. Strategy ensures that your care continues without you. So once you have the you have the state, you've shared your vision, you have your mission, you know this, and you've shared it with everybody in your team, you've inspired them, and you can see that your team is inspired and on fire, you have the systems in place. That's when the time is to say, okay, now I can get an associate. Now I can bring somebody in because we have everything in place. We have the machine. We have the inspiration. And I've seen so many associate agreements go bad because that is not in place. So that's when you can start saying, okay, now I'm turning my practice into a business because my business will continue to grow without me having to put my foot on the gas all the time. Care continues without you, patients stay connected long term, and your practice grows without burning you out. So strategy for lifetime care, it doesn't happen by accident. It requires clear care pathways without compromise. And this goes back, and let me just share this with you guys. And I'm going to say, I'm saying some things today that I know are going to hurt. But for you to grow, for you to get to where you want to be, you have to face these things, because if you're still accepting people that want to be in your office outside of what your delivery system is. Like if you are focusing on correcting their care or correcting their nervous system and you're doing objective measurements, whether it be scans or x-rays, whatever that is, and that is your outcome measure, but you're accepting people who are not willing to be under care in your office under those circumstances. They're not willing to do home care. They're not willing to go on a care plan or prepay for their care. They're not willing to bring their kids in. They're not willing to come to your advanced talks or your dinners or your makeovers. You're allowing cancer cells in your practice. And that's why you're not growing, and that's why you're getting burned out. And it is so often. And then until you really get firm on what it is you're delivering and passionate about serving and serving within that model, your practice will continue to struggle. Your staff will continue to be burned out, and you will just be really frustrated. And it's not until you can define exactly what you deliver and stay in that model and be willing to not accept anybody outside that model, that's when practice becomes it. You reach a whole entire new level. You have to define the model. It's got to be right for you. I can't tell you what is right and what is wrong in your practice, but you have to be really firm on what it is you're delivering, how you want to deliver it, and are you willing to accept people that don't want to jump into that model of what your ideal delivery of chiropractic is. It's so important. So lifetime care doesn't happen by accident. It requires clear care pathways without compromise, education and inspiration-based communication. And that's when I say inspiration-based communication, you have to create an opportunity for you to be vulnerable. And I'm going to tell you, so I have all kinds of emotional stories about my family or myself and my life, and I've been completely vulnerable. And when I talk about them, I get very passionate, I get emotional, sometimes it brings me to tears, I get angry, I get frustrated because I see the detrimental things that it have caused in my family. I see the lives that have been destroyed by the medical model, my sister being killed by the chemotherapy and the radiation and the surgery that she had from a very mild diagnosis of cancer that took her life at 45. My mom dying in my arms of a heart attack and me doing CPR on her when she was only 74 years old because the doctor had her on 11 different prescription medications and never instructed her on proper nutrition and never tried to help her when she was a chronic alcoholic. And I watched her decline so quickly in her 70s, her 4 grandkids, gone, watching grandma die and her literally dying in my arms while I'm giving her CPR. I remember the taste in my mouth when I was giving her CPR. I shared that with people and it's bloody emotional. It gets me uptight and angry and upset. But and then I tell them, I don't want that to happen to anybody else. And when I can share my heart with people like that, it was easy for people to say, I want some of that. I want to be part of this energy. I want to be part of this practice. So figure out what's driving you, figure out why you decided to become a chiropractor in the first place, and what pisses you off in the healthcare system that you're not willing to put up with anymore. Stop putting up with it and start sharing with people and be unfiltered and don't care what people think. Because when you get to that point, that's when your practice starts to change. So you want to start talking about family-centered care conversations. Be unwilling to not allow people not to bring their kids in. Be unwilling for them to keep their kids at home. Put systems in your office, inspire your team to make sure that every single person in your office that's coming in to see you has the opportunity to bring their kids in, and enforce it. Don't let them leave their kids at home. It is unfair to their children for those kids not to have the opportunity to get adjusted. Get them in the office. Systems reinforce value over time. Every touch point should answer, is this decision helping me create the practice of my dreams? Every decision you make in your office, is this allowing me to create the practice of my dreams? When I accept a patient under care, if they're not going to sign up for a care plan, if I allow them to to pay as they go, is this allowing me to create the practice of my dreams? You have to answer that. That's totally your call. The team strategy, you don't build freedom by doing more. You build freedom by leading better from a place of vision. Share your vision every day, everywhere, every chance you get. And that means training your team to communicate the vision, giving them ownership, not just tasks, letting systems replace chaos. If you can't define, and I said this on a call the other day with a new client, if you can't define what chiropractic is articulately within 15 to 30 seconds, if you can't define what it is that makes you unique and you different of why people should come and see you and not the chiropractor down the street, you need to work on that. Because if you can't do it, you know darn well your team can't do it. So you do it first, share it with your team, train on it so they can do it. Make sure you know exactly what it is you do, exactly what chiropractic is, so you can articulately share that with everybody. So then you start creating a practice that doesn't handcuff you. A team with vision protects your time. A team without vision consumes your time. So freedom is not absence. Freedom is structure. You want to create freedom in your life? Build the structure, but it comes from state, story, strategy. When systems are clear, roles are defined, values are lived, and you can step away and the practice continues to grow. So in closing, just let me leave you with this. People don't fail in chiropractic because they lack new patients. It's not new patients that's driving your practice. They struggle because your state is exhausted. Okay, so manage your state. Do whatever you need to do to pour into you, to fill your cup up. Your story's too small and your strategy is keeping you trapped. Make sure you come to seminar. I mean, we got stuff coming up. There's Pure and Powerful coming up on March the 7th. We have our seminar March 21st. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to get into training. We're going to talk philosophy. Just be part of the group. Plan on that. The chiropractor who wins long term, you regulate your state. So you work on your life to manage your state. Lead with a bigger story and build a strategy that serves life, not just visits. You were never meant to trade your life for practice. You were meant to build something that heals families, empowers teams, creates abundance, and leaves a legacy. You want to leave this profession better than when you started in it. So you can only do that by being the best chiropractor that you can be. And I think all of you on this call have the opportunity to be better than where you're at right now.